Just a sec. All righty.
Okay.
All righty. So yeah, I have to tell you, Carl, you're one of my favorite independent team owners. I have tremendous respect for your race team.
Maybe you'll pick better choices in the future. I can't help the one you got this time.
Yeah, and I'm quite satisfied with the choice because, you know, your cars look very cool, but consider it my guilty pleasure, I guess. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a list of questions about your racing career and your race team, and hopefully you have the answer for them. But yeah, they're about your involvement in the sport. So my first one is, where are you originally from?
A little town called Roxborough, North Carolina, which is right above Durham. And we raced at the Orange County Rougemont Speedway and South Boston Speedway. That's where I grew up racing.
Pretty cool. I'm originally from
Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
South Boston's got a little known history with the Burtons and the Savers. I raced against all of those growing up.
Ah, pretty cool. The Burtons. Pretty cool. So yeah, what made you get into motor racing?
My dad was already driving in the Baby Grand Series. He started running a mini stock. He's a Volkswagen mechanic, so he started running Volkswagens in the early 70s, and in 1974 and 75, he's running the Baby Grand Series. Then he got a Pinto when he outlawed the VW Bug, and so he had 2 or 3 VWs. And as I got old enough to drive, I mean, when I was 12 years old, Rougemont was shut down, and I used to go out with my dad and his 2 brothers, and they let me drive the race car, one of the Volkswagens around out there as well. So when the Speedway reopened in 1983, my dad was no longer racing in the Dash Series, and we started the mini stock class at Orange County Speedway.
That's really cool, man. That's pretty awesome. Is it true that you were a manager at Domino's for a number of years before becoming a race team owner?
Well, I did work for Domino's, but what I did is in 1983, when I first started racing, I was doing a Volkswagen Beetle, and in 1985, my senior year in high school, they opened a Domino's Pizza in my hometown of Rockville. And I convinced them guys to sponsor me. I think they gave me $1,000 for the year for the mini stock car. And then I turned around and painted my Volkswagen Beetle, my street car, just like my race car. And I delivered pizzas with the number 44 number on the side of it, and the Domino's Pizza logo, just like my race car was. And so that was doing pretty well. And then I went to college, and I would stop. I drove from Roxborough to Raleigh to go to school, and then I would come back to Durham and deliver pizzas at night. Because the time I got home from Roxborough, you couldn't make any more money because dinner rush was over. So I stopped in Durham and delivered pizzas, and when I graduated college, I was supposed to go to work for Jack Kent building race car motors, and he had told me they would take me on over there. And Domino's had problems with my home store by that time. They didn't know anybody to come from the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area that could go to a little poor dump town like Roxborough and get the people in there and get them working. So they offered me the position of store manager, and I told them I would do it if they sponsored my race car where I could move up. And so we agreed as a great franchisee, one of Domino's best persons that I knew of, named Dan Shefsky. And Dan's the one that made that offer for me, and that allowed me to get me an engine in the front of me instead of a Volkswagen behind me. We got a V8 car and put the motor in the front of me, and so I couldn't race every weekend. I had to pick a track. And so I picked Orange County Speedway, and then the next weekend I had to manage the store for the weekend, being that the stores are Friday and Saturday nights are your biggest nights. and I wound up training several store managers. They moved on, some of them from franchisees. I won manager of the year. You know, I took our store sales from $3,500 a week to over $10,000 a week. And then Arie Luyendyk won the Indianapolis 500, the Domino's on the car.
Well, I closed in on him really rapidly, and then when I saw that was going on, I mean, I could barely see him going into one, me coming out of four, and like 6 laps later I'm getting pretty close, so I was obviously pumped up, and you feel like, man, this is, you know, it's going good, I gotta pass him. So when I did pass him, it was pretty decisive in turn 3, where he almost didn't expect it, I think.
Arie Luyendyk hunting down Bobby Rahal, hunts him down, has him alongside for the moment, and goes ahead as Rahal just presses the brakes. It's Luyendyk in the lead of the Indianapolis 500.
And it was a very hard race, and you know, we were up front a lot of it. The right front wing flap collapsed; it broke, so I lost push, or I had a lot of push in the car, and I couldn't. And Arie was fast. And I just couldn't get it through the corner, so he passed me, and that was that.
He passed the leader. No more inheriting it, no more just being there, capable of taking advantage of the situation. He passed Rahal, and he did it nice.
Thoughts were flashing through my mind, like I could see my parents sitting in front of TV watching me back in Holland, because the race was live there, and stuff like that. Then I thought, man, I'm going to win $1 million. That came through my mind too, and then I go, okay, just concentrate on those last few laps, you know?
An incredible win it will be, and at an incredible pace. 185.8 miles an hour, his average on the last lap. There's the main straightaway line ahead, and his destiny. Arie Luyendyk comes for the checkered flag and picks up the win as Arie Luyendyk wins the 74th running of the Indianapolis 500, his very first IndyCar victory.
When I crossed the line, I raised my arm up in the air, and it almost ripped off because I was still doing 200 miles plus an hour. Yeah, so I hurt my arm on that one. I learned from that one later just to stick it up like this. And then after that, it kind of becomes a little bit of a blur, because you get surrounded by, you know, hundreds of people in the pit lane, and then the victory circle. And no, it was definitely special.
Tom Monahan came out with a national part that Domino's Pizza was no longer going to be involved in fast driving under any circumstances. Because at the end it was 30 minutes or $3 off. Everybody was suing the Domino's Pizza people for fast driving, and so they canceled the sponsorship, and so I moved on, and I dropped my job. And instead of becoming a franchisee, they offered to sell me the store, but I wanted to race. I didn't want to own a Domino store. So I went to work in the tobacco industry. And with my first family, or my first wife's family. They had a tobacco warehouse, and went to work with them, and started generating other sponsorship to keep racing.
Pretty cool, man. So this happened after Arie Luyendyk won Indy in '90?
Yes, when I think it was probably 3, 4, 5 months, you know, in 1990 that after he had won the Indy 500, I had won some races and won the championship in Orange County in the street stock class, and everything was looking good. You know, no problems, and my store sales was doing good, and it just, at that point in time, it was just too many people suing Domino's Pizza and talking about their drivers, and we did have some that would jump through the side ditch, and we had to run to the doors. We had to run to the stuff. Our whole thing was about speed and timing. And we didn't promote fast driving, but we promoted getting there fast. And that's why Domino's Pizza as an industry backed out of sponsoring race cars. Fast driving. Anything to do with fast driving.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So what was making your first Cup start like at Dover for the Dixon?
That was a pretty good educational experience. We had, as I had moved up and got sponsorship, and I had ran in the All-Pro Series, I had ran in late model stock, I had people behind me in construction. My biggest supporter that helped get me going is a guy named Jim Robbins from Romeo Guest Construction. And to this day, he still helps Dennis Setzer and Scott Riggs with their kids. And Jim helped me, develop my business. He's like a big brother I never had. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. And so he really took me under his wing, and we grew together. And then when I started touring racing and we started doing the All-Pro stuff, and we got sponsorship from Austin Crackers, it was such a schedule that Jim just couldn't take off from his work to go travel the All-Pro Series and do what we had to do. And he just was more content to be right around the southeast area, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. That little area is about as far as he could really travel and still run his business. So he sold me his part of the team and financed it for me, and helped me generate stuff with it. And that's when I just didn't have enough money to make it on my own at that point. And T. Dixon in Durham, which was only 30 minutes away, he owned 7 or 8 trucks, 4 or 5 old Cup cars, all sitting around, and they had no real person with knowledge to take it and grab it and run with it. And I convinced Mr. Dixon to let me work on it and drive it. And so he sent me with him to the Daytona 500 with Randy Renfro driving. And so I helped Randy. We went down and we missed the race. They had bought a car from Larry Hedrick, one of the 41 Kodiak cars. And so we went down and we missed the race. And then they come up on Bristol, and NASCAR I wasn't approved to drive Bristol, even though I had just won the All-Pro race there. One of the biggest races the All-Pro had. I had won it, but they would not let me drive the car. Because I didn't have any experience in Cup to do it. So we put one of the guys there put Ken Bouchard in the car, and Ken did not make that race. And but I had worked with him a little bit. So then we went to Charlotte, and I took one of the Cup cars and one of the older Thunderbirds, and went out and ran practice with it in the ARCA series. And we were second fastest in the race. I think I had an engine problem and stuff with it, but really well. And after I ran the Charlotte ARCA race and so forth, I got the blessing to be able to drive a Cup at that point. And so the very first Cup race that I made was the Charlotte race, the Coca-Cola 600. And Darrell Waltrip wound up starting the thing, and that was his last race. And I knew that we didn't have a good racing motor. We just had a qualified engine in it, and that was pretty much. I was hoping for a lot of adoption papers, but it never really happened. You had to have a big sponsor, and anybody would adopt you. But I knew with Darrell getting out, maybe he would help me, and he's been real good about helping me, guide me, and do a little bit of things here and there. But as far as just handing it to you on the platter and say, here you go drive. He tried to help me with that when he started his truck team, but Michael and Bobby Kennedy and some of the other people that ran that truck team was more involved, and David Ruderman, who I had raced against in All-Pro, got the call, and they put him in the truck, and they never even gave me a chance. So,
I see.
Yeah, there's so many things in racing that's political that don't have to do anything with driving skills. And, so I just wound up being the guy that I would go take the car, put the car together, put the motors in them, put the seats in them, build the race cars, and grab a few of my buddies and go to the racetrack. And sometimes we made the race and sometimes we didn't. And it just depends on, Charlotte used to have an open practice. So we could just go there and buy 2 or 3 sets of tires and practice and learn. And I got fast enough to make the race. Now that you don't have any practice, you have to have simulators and you have to have all the high dollar stuff to go to the racetrack and unload and be pretty much 90% when you unload. And I'm slowly getting to that point now with the stuff that we've got. I've got a pull down machine and a lot of good people, and Toyota helps me a little bit with some of the loads and the stuff that we need on the pull down. So it gave me a little bit of an advantage, but or a little bit of help, but ain't no advantage. We just have a little help. But we hope to keep running well enough like Kenney did at Daytona and finishing third. And Austin had a top 10 this weekend with the 61 car and made a bad pit decision on some tires, and we wound up finishing 15th with him, and I think Chad was 17th or 18th. So it's a place. My team is a place that people can come run to whatever the budget. It's sort of like buying a new car. If you go buy a car and you can get roll-up windows, or you can get power windows, you can get power seats, I'll offer you my race team to go to the racetrack at a stripped-down version. It don't cost but about $20,000, $25,000 to go to the track. But if you want all brand new tires from Goodyear, well, you got to add another $20,000 to the budget. And if you want a first-class cup pit crew, you got to add another $5,000 or whatever the expenses might be. So I can take one and start it off at $20,000, but we can wind up spending about $100,000 on it if you do everything possible to have the best you can be.
Oh, I see. So is that why your team is called Motorsports Business Management?
The reason that we're Motorsports Business Management is when I created MBM back in, I think it was 2003 or 2004, I was looking at what will I do after racing. And at that point, there were no agents involved for drivers. And what I saw was a lot of kids coming, not even kids then, we were older people. The young kids were a little bit later as they become recruited. But what was happening is I could see a guy that I raced with who come up with $50,000 or so forth and went and gave it to somebody to drive their race car. Well, they pulled the car out of the back of the shop, and it might have been a show car or been wrecked real hard. And I seen, and there were some people that took advantage of drivers who had money to go drive, and they would get out on a racetrack and run like shit, and spent a bunch of money. And then they wouldn't get sticker tires at the end. They would be new tires, but they was from last year's race. They'd be a year old. So, find them a trustworthy team to deal with, to make sure that the team that they were dealing with prepared their cars correctly. I mean, I have seen people that the brake calipers and the rotors were about ready to break. The rotors were about ready to bust at the last race. And they put somebody in them and wouldn't change them and wouldn't put new ones on it. So I helped out a few guys and stuff. I'd actually go buy the brake parts. I'd buy the pieces and put them over there and So here, you're going to put these on, and I'm deducting out of the check. But that's how MBM got created. It didn't own anything. I had another company called Eagle Motorsports that owned my race cars and everything that I built coming through. But MBM was a management company. And then I wound up managing some of Derek White's cars and assets, and then John Jackson's cars and assets. And we all put them into this one company that is the management group. MBM don't own anything. All of the stock is either Eagle Motorsports that I have, James Carter, or Derek White, who's still a part of our stuff. Chad Fincham owns a couple of cars that's in the middle of this mix. And it's just, we just all put it under one, and that's just the management group that runs it all. And they still have their assets. If Chad got mad and wanted to go drive for somebody else or quit, he can take his car and go with it. That's what you find in today's business. People, a lot of people don't mind buying a car. They don't mind buying an engine. They hate buying tires, and they hate paying labor because the tires disappear. You pay a guy $1,000 for this week, for next week, you ain't got nothing to look at. That $1,000 in his pocket. He don't. But they'll spend $1,000 on the car to sit there and go dust.
Makes a lot of sense. You're an excellent business person. No other way to put it.
Yeah. So, like I said, I probably have 6 different people that have different investments that make MBM work.
That's really awesome. So yeah, after that, I must ask, how did your team inherit the 35 Xfinity team and Joey Gase last year?
How did we inherit them?
Yeah, that's a metaphor. What I mean is, how did the 35 team move from Archie St. Hilaire's team to your team?
All that happened is all of the cars that Joey drove last year, they're all mine. The only thing that came over with Joey was the number. And NASCAR just allowed me to have number 35. And then Joey brought his Donate Life sponsorship and other sponsors that he had, because the 35 number was a number that Joey ran as he was coming through the ranks, and that was his personal security number that he loves. And so, okay, I dropped car number 40 last year. I dropped my 40 number out of the way and changed it to 35 for him. So I didn't get any assets or anything from Archie or Bobby Dodd that was running all that. So
okay, got it.
The only thing I got was Joey and one of his teams. And the team and Joey both are gone this year to Rick Lair's.
All righty. Makes a lot of sense. So yeah, what happened that caused your Rockingham accident?
We
got to remember one thing right now, Chris. What car is he driving? The car that won the race here last fall. So these guys know what they're doing. Tommy Baldwin's a great crew chief. We're seeing right now a suspension shot from Greg Biffle's car. Now I think we're on board with Johnny Sauter. So we got all the cameras and all the angles covered today for sure, my friend.
Well, there is a lot to cover as, of course, Rusty Wallace running fourth, Kane trying to catch him. And there goes Casey Kane moving past the veteran Rusty Wallace, who's trying to end that 99 race winless streak. Let's get a quick update.
Hey, Chris, we just heard Casey Kane talking to his crew chief, Tommy Baldwin. He said the track is getting tighter. Big track.
Only kept the car upside down on the back straightaway.
Carl Long has crashed hard and collected Bobby Labonte in the process.
Man, Carl's car just took a wild tumble. Joe Nemechek.
Oh, he's okay.
Yeah, Nemechek,
Wow.
Nemechek was up in that too somehow.
Sixth caution at lap 263, and there is Carl Long. He is okay. The Al Smith Dodge is a mess.
I'll tell you what, it's been a long time since the last time I saw a car tumble down the back straightaway like that was Bobby Allison in the Mercury of Roger Penske's in about 1976, I think it was here. Bobby took a wild ride down the back straightaway, very similar to that.
It's something you just don't see. Not here.
He climbed up that, what happened is he climbed up that wall and he got the thing up on that wall. It just started turned over and started tumbling.
You know, Paul Wolf in qualifying the other day in the Busch Series climbed that wall. He just about turned over, but did not.
See if we can figure out what happened here, guys. Get a look at this. There's Bobby Labonte.
The blue car in front, 46.
46.
Somebody hits.
Oh, he just gets hooked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brendan Gaughan got into the back of Joe Nemechek in the 01. Brendan Gaughan in the 77.
Carl Long goes for the wild ride.
And that's all on driver's side right there, sliding down the racetrack. Now she starts to tumble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5.5, 6 times.
And almost landed on top of Bobby Labonte. Jeannie?
Although, guys, Bobby Labonte isn't really complaining too much. He says there's really not a lot of front end damage. He says, certainly I have some flat tires. I'm going to have to go behind the wall.
They're also going to make a slight air pressure adjustment in that right rear, and he will beat his teammate, the 97, off pit road, Steve. That, Jamie McMurray saying his car is loose off the corners. They've already made a chassis adjustment, a wedge adjustment, 4 tires.
Ryan Newman's team finishing up service. Matt Borland and crew. 18 cars on the lead lap.
I believe McMurray may have beaten the everybody off pit road.
There's what's left of Carl Long's car. Once again, he is okay after this bad tumble. Brendan Gaughan gets into the black car of Joe Nemechek, and the 46, the blue car, goes skyward there.
Yeah, Nemechek being up under the back of the 46 car lifted it up and got it up on the wall.
It was Mark Martin that turned Bobby Labonte there, and Labonte was way close to that.
Look how high that car got right. It got a lot of air there at one point.
At actual speed.
Just run out of room back there.
I mean, you're probably running well over 150 miles per hour right there in that area.
Ricky Rudd had to drive through it. Let's ride with him.
That's when you call your crew and you say, you won't believe what I just saw.
At that particular point, I was on old tires, and Joe Nemechek and Brendan Gaughan was racing for position, and I knew they was too wide behind me, and I just dropped low coming off turn 2 so that they would go by on the outside. Well, I think Brendan hit Joe in the left rear and shot Joe down the racetrack, hit me in the right rear, and turned me right into the wall on the back stretch, and the right foot tire just climbed the wall, and the car started barrel rolling, sliding on his door and that kind of stuff. Yeah, them two guys created all of that. But and you know, and it's ironic that both of them are good friends of mine now. You know, I really didn't know them a lot then, but just like right now, we're working in the South Point Hotel and Casino parking lot, getting ready to go to Phoenix.
Interesting.
But Brendan and Joe were really good people. Joe drove for me some last year. Brendan always, you know, for me, for somebody like Brendan Gaughan, who is very big in business and, you know, and has a statue that he has out in Vegas, he is more common and treats you like the kid next door that you play baseball with. Just always got a great attitude, and I'm just proud to be able to call him one of my friends.
Pretty interesting. Sounds like somebody I might want to meet one of these days, for sure.
Yeah, you would never think that Brendan is, you know, his family's very wealthy, or should be, for what they've got, but he doesn't act like it at all. He's just good, down-to-earth people.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and Joe's the same way. I mean, if Joe's driving the car, he's in there working on the seats, he's doing stuff. I mean, for somebody to be Joe Nemechek, who's front row Joe, I mean, he's really hands-on and gets in the cars and helps you work on them. You wouldn't expect that. That's who I am. I didn't expect that to be Joe, but yeah, Joe's a tinkerer. He's always playing stuff too. So I have a lot of respect for those guys.
Yeah, and last year when NASCAR issued that penalty to Nemechek's team after Homestead with the race manipulation allegations, I did not believe for a second that Joe had anything to do with that. I think he was just the driver, because Joe always seems like that really nice guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always liked Joe Nemechek. He seemed like a pretty cool guy and a laid-back guy as well.
Yes, he is. Yeah. He's a guy that worked to be where he's at. So.
Yeah. And he has a team that's kind of similar to yours as far as independence and all that. So that's what I respect about him.
He just has a whole lot more resources that he's been able to pay for over the years. He had some good years in the Cup. I never did. You know, I had years in there, but it never was profitable.
Oh, I see.
So Joe's got a big building and a lot of equipment to use, and they got their own machine shop that him and his brother and all run. They make parts for a bunch of other racers like myself. But yeah, of all these years, somebody Googled it last week and told me that Google said I was worth $20 million. I was like, holy shit, I wish I did know I was worth $20 million. I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You need to clarify. I might have took in $20 million in my career, but it all went somewhere else. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. So, this next one you don't have to answer if you don't wish, but where were you when you got the official word that your team would be penalized $200,000 for a oversized engine?
Welcome back. You remember Carl Long's huge crash at Rockingham back in 04? Man, that one got all kind of replays. A part-time Cup driver, Carl was okay. His low-budget race car was not, unfortunately. And now Carl is back in the news, this time for running an oversized engine in practice for the Sprint Showdown preliminary to last month's All-Star race. Actually, it was the unprecedented penalty for that infraction that made news. A $200,000 fine, a 200-point penalty, and a 12-race suspension. This week, the National Association for Stock Car Racing Commission denied Carl's appeal of that penalty. Carl joins us now to fill in some of the details. Do I have this right? It's an ex-Ganassi motor that came to you by way of Ernie Elliott, overheated in practice. You had to submit it to NASCAR in order to be able to put your spare in, and they then found it to be 0.17 of an inch oversized, thus the big hammer. Are those facts correct?
That's pretty close to it.
You've been vocal in criticizing the penalty. What do you think should have happened here? Had you been NASCAR, what would you have done?
Kept the engine.
some infraction, but not near what we've got from this deal. So
less penalty. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and I've been vocal. It was it was an all-star race, and no other all-star event in any sport does it affect regular season. So I asked them to change the rules. That didn't work out too well either.
We offered NASCAR the opportunity to be part of this discussion tonight, to air their side. The quote from their PR person, our side has been presented. Anyone who's spent more than a day in the sport knows big engines are a big problem. Ask Richard Petty, ask Junior Johnson. Nothing has changed. There have always been severe penalties for attempting to manipulate engine, tires, or fuel. You have any reaction to that?
Somewhat. I think that when Richard Petty won the race, he won the race. When Bodine did what he did, they were in competition. This was in practice, and anyone in a garage area knows of my circumstances and while I'm there. The rules are wrote for what they are, but at the bottom line, as it always has, at NASCAR's discretion. And there's a few things. Hey, get this fixed before you come back through tech. Fix this before next week. So I was wrong by expecting to get something out of it. A rule is a rule. That's what they said, and that's the way it's got to be, and there's no other game in town, so what do you do?
Richard, when he won his 198th, I think it was, with a big motor, huge motor at Charlotte, got a $35,000 fine, which was a record at the time, and they took away 104 points. So there's that. When you appealed it, what did you think the outcome would be? Did you think something was going to happen? I mean, you had to be surprised with the initial hammer. Then you appealed. What did you expect?
I expected a reduction. I expected the penalty to be, the suspension to be dropped, or at least to 4 weeks like Jeff Bodine and Junior Johnson had. Trying to think of anything else. I thought of a lot of things, but none of them seemed to happen, except the infraction got rolled over to a Sprint Cup Series rule, and that's the first time I'd seen that happen.
They took your original suspension, which was 12-week NASCAR suspension, and applied it only to Sprint Cup, meaning you can still work in truck and nationwide. Given, I don't know if people understand that you do more than just drive race cars. How does that change in the suspension affect your life? Does that help you with your current problem?
A little. It will allow me to go with our nationwide team, but at the same time, if I'm spotting for my nationwide team, are they going to kick me out of the flagman stand if I'm spotting for the Cup team when they change practice sessions?
Yeah.
But it's been pretty tough, because when I go to the racetrack, if I'm going cheated, I was going to go big cheated. And if I got kicked out, I mean, I had every opportunity to load up and go to the house, and we didn't. And so here I am, and we can't pay the fine, so we're just out of NASCAR.
Does Ernie have a role in this? Does the engine builder have any liability, any responsibility in your mind?
Well, I tried to see if NASCAR, when I lobbied the hearing, would make engine builders responsible, and that's not a part of it. We signed the paperwork and we said that, well, we got it. I mean, Ernie basically cut me a deal. He had a lot of extra Ganassi engines. He cut me a deal on one. Why it's big, how it got big, I have no clue.
He said overheating, did he not, had something to do with it?
Yeah, his part was, as much as it overheated, it melted the head gasket into the cylinder head, and he said that was why it got big.
You don't anticipate being able to come up with $200,000? Or it was the crew chief's fine?
Correct.
Does it revert to you at some point if he can't pay it? Are you ultimately responsible?
Yes. At the end of the year, Section 12 in the rule book basically states any fines not settled goes back to the owner, which my wife was listed as the owner. So typically, yeah, you can say I'm off the hook, but how do I go back to the racetrack without my wife when it's my team?
So you said you're out of NASCAR. Is this the end of it for you? Have they run you off?
I hope not. I mean, we're trying to, David Ruderman has started cheerleading and trying to pool up some money and make things happen for us, but my yearly, this penalty is probably at least 300% more than what we make.
What you,
yeah. And so anyway, it's, I don't know how I'll go forward with it. You want to race, you want to be a part of it. Yes, I can be in the Nationwide Series garage and so forth, but at the end of the year, my license is not in good standing. Do I get an issue? Because I've never seen anything to compare it against in the past.
Will they give you a license next year with with the fine outstanding. It's a sad story. We're sorry it happened. We're glad you came here to tell us about it.
Well, you can always keep up with me at carlong.com, even if I have to go back to dirt track racing or something.
Contributions in addition to Rudimans will be accepted, I'll bet. Carl,
Yep.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. These floors look like it needs some cleaning. I can work on it.
Get this man a mop. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back on the other side with more of Wind Tunnel. Don't go anywhere. Got a good spirit.
Where was I at?
Yeah.
We had just ran Charlotte, so I was at home. Hang on a second. I'm doing an interview right now. We were at Charlotte. They told me at the racetrack that, this wasn't going to be good, it wasn't that. And Tuesday, I guess I was at the shop. I worked for Front Row Motorsports then. So I got the call on my cell phone while I was working on John Andretti's car at Front Row. And I just, it took a lot of wind out of my sail. And ultimately, Bob Jenkins was real supportive of it, but the problem is that I started getting more media attention than John Andretti. We go to the racetrack, and and I was just kind of a part-time racer then. I didn't have anything cool, just had my own car to run when I could. And Bob was always supportive of that. But ultimately, it caused me to lose my job there. I draw too much attention. So,
yeah.
I'm supposed to be back there in the back doing my job, and my phone's ringing off the hook. People up there at the receptionist want to see me. And all to ask about this, and it just ultimately cost me that. So I wound up going back to a truck team and helping them out, and using my tractor and trailer, and rented it out. And I used my tractor and pulled their hauler and set their cars up, and eventually started, driving some truck stuff for Brian Weber with the Coma Online stuff. He needed a truck driver. We had a truck, and I was one of them, and I just kept going and rebuilding myself from that point on.
That's very admirable, man. Did you file an appeal for the penalty at all, or no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went to all 3 appeal boards, and it was pretty much irrelevant.
Yeah.
And, NASCAR made their decision, and I was told when I came back into racing later on that if the people that were in charge of NASCAR now, if they would have been in charge back then, then the decisions would have probably been a little bit different. But either way, Ernie Elliott's the one that built the engine and sold it to me. And it was wrong. And I don't build engines. And we had our issues with Ernie, and I had to get that settled, but it didn't come out to my liking either. So
yeah.
But, like I said, you take the lumps and go on. So that $200,000 fine pretty much put me out of racing in the Cup side for 8 years, and I learned to make it on this side. And like I said, then I got other people that had 2 or 3 cars, and we just blended them all together, and then we had enough to race every weekend. And I kind of just looked after managing all of that, and still do.
Yeah. So how exactly were you able to reach a deal with NASCAR to let you return to the Cup Series a couple years ago?
I seen that the Cup Series was starting to struggle, having full fields and teams, and I'm still supporting that, but I'm still there every week. And so we come to an agreement where I could live with it, they could live with it, and they allowed me back in the Cup Garage.
That's great to hear. That's just great. I'm glad that you're back in the Cup Series. That's pretty cool. I remember a couple years ago when I went to the Cup race at ISM in November, and I saw the 66 Eureka Toyota out on the track, and I was very glad to see it.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw it.
That was another one of them sponsor deals that looked like it was going to be promising, but...
Oh. Whoops. For some reason it hung up. Let me call back. What happened? Let me see.
Wow, I'm still talking to you and it started ringing again.
Yeah, sorry about that. The call dropped for some reason.
Yeah.
So you said that the Eureka was going to be sponsored. It was going to be promising. And what happened?
We had another guy that basically got the Eureka sponsorship for his race team. And he didn't have a race team. He bullshitted Eureka. And then came to me because he needed a race team. And he wanted David Starr to drive it. And so we put everything together with our car, and this particular person just, he got the payment from Eureka, and then he failed to pay us the rest of it. And I ran Phoenix and Homestead with him, and never got paid for what I was supposed to get paid from him because he was paid. I was just a third party person, and then Eureka realized that I'm the actual race team, and this guy didn't actually. All he had was a desk and a computer. Somehow or another, he got sponsorship.
Oh,
and
I see.
So we tried to make it all happen, but I guess their board of directors decided that they didn't, just doing a couple 3 races was one thing, and they were short a race. The man never had, he still owes them a race. And so it didn't go as well as they wanted to with him, and they backed out, and we've tried to stay in touch with them, but it's 2 or 3 different groups involved. They have a marketing group, they have a promotions group, and like I said, we had this other guy that he sold them that he owned the race team. He had an owner's license, and that's all he had. Did not even own a lug nut.
Oh.
Yeah, but he had an owner's license. And they stay on the phone all of the time. There's a bunch of these people who do that. And they stay on the phone all of the time, and then they come up with sponsorship. Me, I'm over here changing the gear in the rear end or making sure that my guys has got everything done. And on top of this, that's his job, is to look and find money and promote our race team with a brand. And we've done real well with the roofclaims.com coming on board. We've got a few other ones that are coming on board we haven't had, and that's what it takes. It takes a person that's a special kind of person that knows how to do this stuff and promote you, and to be on the phone 24/7. And with us, we don't promote that we're going to go out and outrun Kyle Busch. We know better than that, but they don't have to spend the money that M&M's Mars spends. We sell them on the experience. Come with us to the racetrack. Hang out in the pits. Kyle Busch might be parked beside of us,
Yeah.
Bring the people, and that's what we do, is we sell experience for, a quarter of what they get. So that works out for us a little better.
That's pretty cool, and that's a good business strategy. Selling people race experiences for sponsorship. That's really cool.
Right. Well, just like Daytona this year, Kenney Hill ran very competitive in our Ford down there, and finished third in our Toyota in Xfinity race. But both of those races, we did not use our own engine program. We had money to have the best of the best lease. Toyota didn't have an engine for us that we could lease. And Doug Yates and the guys over at Roush Yates, they did have a good engine for us, so we had to get together a Ford. And we went down there, and like I said, Kenney ran in the top 10 several times with that, and we made the race with the 500. So we spent $200,000 to go down there to try to run that race. Had we missed the race, we would have lost money. But that's, we gave our sponsors their money's worth. We finished third in the Xfinity race, and so these guys are happy to show up, and we're going to run several more races with them.
That's great to hear, and I wish you guys luck with that, because you guys seem to be getting better every year from what it looks like.
Well, the road course races and the super speedway races, you can compete on the cup level with them. But the mile-and-a-half tracks and some of the other stuff, we just don't have the resources to compete. So we just try to sell experience. And so you will see, I know that my Xfinity cars are way more competitive than my Cup cars. So I throw in the Xfinity car for Kenney. We'll put roof claims on the Xfinity car as a bonus, because I know as a competitor, I'm not going to run that well on the Cup side. I'm just going to sell them the experience, but I want them to get behind it, to know that we just need a little more, resources. And like I said, and now they've opened up to the Xfinity side and seen that is also a marketing avenue that works for them. And so it's like a buy one, get one free. They sponsor my Cup car, I'll give them an Xfinity car, and no harm, no foul. If it don't run good, it wasn't really expected to. The Xfinity's a free deal, but it just helps us overall in the whole program.
All righty. Makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So were you at the tragic Daytona 500 in 2001?
When Earnhardt got killed?
Yeah.
I had already made it home. I missed the race. I'd actually spoken to Senior on Thursday for the qualifying races. And that might have been Wednesday back then, qualifying races. I had spoken to him just a little bit. And, we missed the race. And I was driving for Dixon at that time. And I was already at home, car unloaded when the Sunday race happened.
What was your reaction to hearing the news?
It just didn't seem possible. The wreck that he hit, what I seen on TV, wasn't spectacular at all. And that man was, he was tough as concrete on the Ironhead. You looked at him like, there's no way he was hurt, He barrel rolled stuff. Ryan Newman's wreck a couple weeks ago, I thought he was dead. That was a spectacular wreck. A lot of impact, a lot of noise, a lot of stuff. Everybody was around and said, yep, Newman didn't make it. And he did. And that's those wrecks you kind of expect, and he's walking away. Like I said, nobody expected, looking at the wreck, that Earnhardt's seatbelt stuff broke, and that's what eventually caused it to get killed.
Yeah, and both of those wrecks were really tough. When I saw Newman's accident, I couldn't move. Like, I was certain that he was gone. And from what I've studied, from what it looks like, according to the news, it was a part that Ryan Newman had suggested to NASCAR years ago that saved his life.
So that was definitely had some positive effects for him. I actually spoke to some of the people that did the investigating of the crash and stuff. And Newman actually had an aluminum seat in that car instead of a carbon fiber one.
Oh.
And the aluminum seat, it actually kind of, from what I understand, it rolled around his helmet. So his head, the left side headrest, got impacted by the other car. And the other car, Corey LaJoy's car, hit the seat and hit his helmet. And like I said, the helmet, the whole headrest just kind of wrapped around and vice gripped his head into the seat. But the impact from him and everything that was in there, everything did its job. And it's a question because of the tests and stuff they've had. They've done a lot of tests on the headrest expanding open, but they've not really done a test that's a compression test. And I'm not so sure that, that's another impact. It's something new that I'm sure NASCAR is going to be studying for future stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting information. And when the wreck happened, my dad kind of assumed from his experiences as a police officer, he kind of assumed that the silence meant burns. But from what it looks like, that wasn't so. Yeah.
Well, everybody thought it. Even the people removing him from the car, they cut all the roll bars out. You know, he was stuck in the seat, not moving. I guess he was unconscious. I don't know. But he was squished in the seat. And the headrest was what was squishing him together. The main part of him, for his ribs and the rest of the body, it all stayed intact. And when they cut the whole seat out of the car, cut the roll bars out, and they cut the seat loose and removed the pressure and all that stuff, they basically just took his helmet off and I guess he got a concussion. I don't even know if he got a concussion. I know he had a little bit of a brain bleed, but that's you can read all that stuff on the internet and find out just as well as I did. But no, everyone doing everything expected the worst until they finally got him all the way out of the seat. So
yeah, it's a miracle he survived for sure, because if that were 2001, it probably would have been different.
Yeah, I raced against him, Jimmy Johnson, and Shauna Robinson for Rookie of the Year. So I told everybody that when I ran for Rookie of the Year, I just took it easy on Jimmy and Ryan. I didn't want to mess up their day.
Yeah, class act.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's...
All right, have you got anything else? Because my guys are standing around here waiting on me to get off the phone.
Yeah, I have one. I just want to give you a compliment very quick before we kind of go, because I have nothing else to say right now.
All right.
I want to give you a compliment and say you're a very big class act, and I enjoyed talking with you.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope I can clarify. There's a lot of people that don't even know about my history in the sport. They only kind of know, last couple of years. But that's what we've got to do, is we've got to let people realize that the sport isn't, it still has good people in it. And you can still get there. It's achievable. It's just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, and you're a very smart person. Like, we need more people like you in the sport, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know if I will be able to make it next year. It's $400,000 cost for one of the new cars, and that's tough for us to come up with right now. So we may wind up just being an Xfinity-only team next year.
Yeah, I'll say prayers that you guys can remain in the Cup Series. I'll say prayers for y'all.
Well, that's why we're trying to get the sponsorship to help us get there.
All righty, cool.
All right, bud. Have a good day.
You too, and I'll let you know when the project comes out, all right?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Have a good day. Bye. All righty. That turned out very well. I enjoyed chatting with him. Thank God for letting me do this interview. No other way to put it.